cities are burning all over the USA. Yes, these cities are burning now all over the USA. You know, if these white folks don't settle up pretty soon, we all gonna wake up in Judgment Day. You know, God told Noah about it, by the rainbow sign. There'll be no more water, but there'll be fire the next time. The Bible's fulfilling now. All over the USA. Yes, you know, if these white folks don't settle up soon, the USA, we all gonna wake up in Judgment Day. Yeah.
Reverend F.D. Kirkpatrick and Jim Collier, the cities are burning. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Thousands of people are beginning to return home as the wildfires across Southern California slowly die out. But for the thousands of undocumented migrant workers in San Diego's lucrative agriculture industry, the process is fraught with the threat of harassment and deportation. According to the Los Angeles Times, over 100 Border Patrol agents have been redeployed to evacuation centers and neighborhood checkpoints for returning residents. Rumors of immigration raids only increased when an undocumented family was deported to Mexico Wednesday after local law enforcement arrested them for allegedly stealing food. Immigrant rights groups claim local law enforcement is racially profiling immigrants. They say there's no need for them to involve Border Patrol agents. Andrea Guerrero is the chair of the San Diego Immigrant Rights Consortium. She is also the field and policy director of the ACLU in San Diego, joining us now from San Diego. Welcome to Democracy Now! Andrea, can you begin by just laying out the problem for us?
Well, the problem began when city officials at Qualcomm Stadium invited Border Patrol to set up a tent for informational purposes about the fire locations, and this created immediate apprehension among both the documented and undocumented immigrants at Qualcomm Stadium. The situation was exacerbated when around midnight on early Wednesday morning, San Diego City Police walked around the stadium, waking up families and checking for identification, both to ascertain the identity of individuals and to ascertain that they were in fact evacuees from evacuated zones. Anyone who didn't have the identification that corresponded to an evacuation zone were asked to leave. This adversely impacted homeless people, those without proper documents, and those who didn't have documents that corresponded to the correct address. So this affected mostly undocumented individuals, but it also affected other individuals as well. This was further exacerbated, as you pointed out, by the deportation of a family of evacuees that had been encouraged to take supplies back home because they didn't know what they would find back home. And upon exiting the evacuation center, they were apprehended by city police. They were alleged with looting. They were not formally charged. Border Patrol was called in. Border Patrol undertook an immigration inspection and then ultimately deported them. This created even more apprehension among the documented and undocumented immigrants at Qualcomm Stadium and has led to an overall climate of fear and apprehension. In certain instances, there were families inside Qualcomm Stadium who were afraid to leave, and there were those who left and didn't take any supplies, much needed supplies, because they were afraid that they also would be subject to an immigration inspection. There are many more who never came to an evacuation center because of all of this that they were hearing about. And so we're very concerned about the sensitivity to this vulnerable population and the climate that was created at Qualcomm in particular by the presence of Border Patrol, by the document inspection conducted by city police, and by the inspection of evacuees who were leaving of the goods that they were taking. The city police, in some instances, rounded up people, surrounded their cars, had them count heads to blankets. All of this was uncalled for. There were mountains and mountains of donated items at Qualcomm Stadium, and it seemed to be simply a matter of inspecting people to harass them, to intimidate them. It's not clear what the purpose of those inspections were.
Andrea, do you know who the bodies were? Have they been identified of 4 people found along the border by Border Patrol, burned?
They have been identified by the Mexican consulate. I don't know their names exactly, but they were 4 individuals. They are Mexican nationals, and the Mexican consulate is still trying to ascertain where the family members of those individuals may be.
And overall, the death toll, do you have any sense of immigrants who were caught in the fires?
My understanding is that there were only 7 deaths in this fire, and that in itself is remarkable. That's a credit to the first responders, the firefighters, etc., given the scope of this fire. However, 4 of those were immigrants. We don't know if they were documented or undocumented. We don't know the circumstances of their death, but that's over half. We do know that a great number of migrant farm workers were too afraid to come out of danger zones. In some instances, they were forced to continue working in the fields through the evacuations in danger zones, and they had to be drawn out by immigrant advocates. They were too afraid to come out on their own. So we're very concerned that this was not an appropriate response. This was not a humanitarian response by our law enforcement officials and others who were in charge of handling the evacuations.
We're talking to Andrea Guerrero, who is with the ACLU and chair of the San Diego Immigrants' Rights Consortium. The family that was deported on Wednesday, can you tell us who they were?
This was a family of 6 individuals and 1 2-year-old U.S. citizen national. And they were part of a larger extended family that was at Qualcomm Stadium. There were initially approximately, there were over a dozen family members detained by San Diego City Police. When Border Patrol undertook its immigration inspection, they found these 6 adults to be without proper documentation, and they deported them as well as the 2-year-old citizen child.